Imagine planning your next dream vacation to the Caribbean. Warm sun, crystal waters, a drink in hand, only to be turned away at the airport because of your U.S. passport. Sounds impossible, right? Well, in 2025 it's becoming a shocking reality. Breaking. The Caribbean is fighting back. And for the first time in history, multiple island nations are unifying to block American travelers. And the reason? Donald Trump. Stay tuned as we break down the top 10 Caribbean nations uniting against the U.S., the controversial policies fueling the backlash, and what this means for millions of travelers in 2025. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and tap the notification bell, because Voyage Pulse delivers the stories the mainstream media won't touch. Drop a comment now. Do you support this Caribbean move, or is it going too far? In early 2025, U.S. President Donald Trump returned to the global spotlight with a sweeping new foreign policy agenda known as the America First 2.0 doctrine. This agenda included new immigration restrictions, tax hikes on foreign tourism services, a bold plan to cut aid to ungrateful nations, and a controversial clause demanding Caribbean countries support U.S. foreign policy or lose trade privileges. This sent shockwaves through the Caribbean, a region that has long been economically dependent on American tourists, but also historically exploited by U.S. policies, and this time they didn't just complain, they acted. Jamaica was the first to speak out, and it did so with fire. Prime Minister Andrew Holness gave a globally viral speech stating, "We will not allow foreign powers to dictate our policies or values. Jamaica is not for sale." As a direct response to Trump's threats, Jamaica suspended fast-track U.S. tourist visas, increased entry requirements for American citizens, and announced a joint tourism alliance with Cuba and the Dominican Republic, excluding the U.S. The move was both economic and symbolic. A declaration that Jamaica is done playing the obedient neighbor. Comment: respect if you think Jamaica stood tall, or risky if it might backfire. Next came Trinidad and Tobago, whose prime minister called Trump's proposals hypocritical and insulting. In a country where 40% of tourism comes from the U.S., the decision to join the boycott was not made lightly, but they did it anyway. Trinidad now requires proof of non-affiliation with U.S. political agencies for long-stay visas, a 25% diplomatic disrespect tax on all U.S.-based travel agencies, and mandatory travel approval for American journalists and influencers. And the message is clear: Trinidad is done being taken for granted. Cuba's tension with the U.S. goes back decades, but this time, it's not just Cuba versus America. Cuba sees a historic opportunity to lead a united Caribbean response to Trump's new foreign aggression. Under Raul Castro's successor, Cuba declared a solidarity pact with 8 other Caribbean nations, blocked U.S. cruise ships from docking at Havana, and opened new ports exclusively for Russian and Chinese tourists. For the first time in history, Cuba isn't the lone rebel, it's the movement's ringleader. The Dominican Republic didn't just reject Trump's demands, they exposed them. Leaked government memos revealed that the United States wanted the Dominican Republic to deny visa-free entry to Haitians, restrict Chinese investment in resorts, and impose stricter anti-immigration policies, mirroring Trump's U.S. border strategy. The Dominican Republic responded by banning U.S. charter flights temporarily, requiring a non-aggression declaration from American officials visiting the country, and strengthening trade ties with Brazil and the African Union. One Dominican Republic official said, "America wants our beaches but not our people. We say no. What's your opinion on this? Drop it in the comments below." The Bahamas has long been a U.S. vacation staple, but when Trump included the Bahamas in his uncooperative nations list, the backlash was instant. Tourism officials reported over 200 U.S. bookings canceled by the government, American tour operators suspended indefinitely, and a push to pivot to Canadian, European, and Middle Eastern tourists. The Bahamian Minister of Tourism even flew to Ottawa, calling Canada their new primary partner. The Caribbean is realigning, away from Washington and toward the world. Barbados, the newly minted republic that cut ties with the British monarchy, has no interest in being bullied by Trump. President Sandra Mason said in a UN address, "We will not accept conditional diplomacy that benefits only the powerful." Barbados now enforces a new $100 Trump tax on all American passport holders, random vetting of all U.S. travelers, and strategic alliances with South Africa, India, and Qatar for tourism development. The message? Your dollars are no longer enough. Tiny but mighty, St. Kitts and Nevis was singled out by Trump for alleged anti-American behavior, which turned out to be them refusing to denounce Venezuela. They responded swiftly, blocking U.S. military planes from Caribbean airspace, canceling all U.S. embassy privileges, and declaring the U.S. an unreliable travel partner. That's a bold stance from a small nation, but it's setting a precedent for others to follow. Check one, check. Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves called Trump's deal a slap to the entire region. St. Vincent announced a Caribbean Council of Resistance, inviting 15 island nations to jointly set visa policies, trade rules, and security alliances independent of the U.S. They also banned U.S. drone flyovers, intelligence sharing with Washington, and governmental cooperation without UN mediation. This is no longer just resistance, it's regional revolution. Antigua's Minister of Foreign Affairs described Trump's new agenda as diplomatic colonialism. The U.S. threatened to pull hurricane relief funds unless Antigua supported Trump's foreign policy in Venezuela and the Middle East. In response, Antigua nationalized U.S.-owned resorts, suspended all visa waivers, and pledged to join CARICOM's new tourism visa, a shared Caribbean alternative to U.S. systems. The Caribbean is building its own travel ecosystem, no American approval needed. And finally, Grenada, the tipping point. Grenada, once invaded by the U.S. in 1983, issued a bold statement. Our sovereignty is not a product to be negotiated. The island closed its U.S. consulate, restricted cruise tourism from Miami, and declared 2025 the year of Caribbean independence. The symbolism is clear. Grenada wants the world, and America, to know that the Caribbean is done begging for respect. This isn't just a political spat. It's a seismic shift that will affect over 12 million American tourists annually. U.S. travel agencies, airlines, and cruise operators and Caribbean economies traditionally reliant on U.S. dollars. Many Americans are now rebooking trips to Europe or South America, facing longer visa waits and higher travel costs, and asking, how did we get here? The travel map is changing, fast. At the heart of this conflict lies a question. Does economic power give the U.S. the right to dictate policies abroad? Or is the Caribbean finally reclaiming its voice after centuries of exploitation? Trump supporters call it tough love. Caribbean leaders call it neo-imperialism. What do you call it? Let's get the conversation going in the comments below. The Caribbean is rising, not with guns or violence, but with unity, policy, and pride. They're not rejecting Americans, they're rejecting arrogance, and maybe they're setting an example for the rest of the world. If you found this video eye-opening, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who loves travel but hasn't seen the full picture. Turn on notifications so you never miss a global twist that could change your next flight or visa plan. Because here on Voyage Pulse, we don't just follow the headlines, we dive into the power beneath them.